Hello, I'm Darielle Snipes with the CMSD News Bureau with another edition of Talk to the CEO. Recently, voters said yes to Issue 68, and the district is seeing its second quarter of remote learning. When might students return to in-person learning or go hybrid? To answer that question is CEO and Superintendent of CMSD, Eric Gordon. He is here to talk about those issues and more. Well, welcome back, Eric.
Great to see you.
So I just wanted to congratulate you on the passing of Issue 68. I know this was a critical time for the district, and it was really important for it to pass for the continuing education for our students. So, I mean, what do you have to say to the voters who want to invest in our students?
Well, I'm just very grateful, and I'm not surprised. I know that if we can make a case for the improvements we've made and are making, that voters will reward that and also expect us to continue the progress. And I think that's what the victory last Tuesday signaled.
And so I know that you've talked about that you have to stretch these levy dollars, even though it's a renewal and then a slight increase. But with this pandemic and everything that the district has had to purchase, what does that look like now that we have the money plus the renewal, but it could be spent very quickly?
Well, we're going to be really conservative while we're still in the pandemic. We will do the things we need to do, just as we have. We bought technology, we bought PPE, we've re-outfitted buses and lots of other things, and that comes at a cost. But we're not going to make big investments with levy dollars during the pandemic. We're going to do only what's necessary to move us through it. We need to reserve those levy dollars that our community gave us for the post-pandemic recovery. What will kids need after this is over, and how are we prepared to invest? At the same time, though, we have to continue to advocate that the state fairly funds our schools. There's legislation finally tackling this issue, and that the federal government provides the stimulus dollars that are necessary to move not only Cleveland, but all of us through the pandemic. That should not fall on taxpayers, and so we'll be very conservative with the dollars that we were just rewarded with. And be advocating for the right people to pay for the pandemic so that Clevelanders pay for the investment after.
And I know we don't know when this is all going to be over, but how long do you think the recovery time will be once we do get out of this pandemic finally? You
know, it's difficult to say, but I have to remind us that this isn't a light switch. We don't just turn the light back on and everything is back to normal. We're going to have to really think about where every student is in their learning journey. You know, we have children who didn't come to preschool or kindergarten this year, and so how do we recreate that necessary experience? Maybe we have 5- and 6-year-olds in the same classroom for kindergarten. Maybe we have longer year-round schedules for those young people. And so what's the catch-up journey going to look like? What about a high school student, a freshman this year, who has never yet taken a class in his or her school? They're going to probably need a different pathway to graduation than a traditional 9th through 12th grade would have had. So, you know, not sure what it's going to look like yet. I'm very sure that we're going to have to invest differently, and that's why we should conserve our levy dollars and not spend simply because taxpayers gave us, frankly, the authority to.
Obviously, you know, with the future, we are figuring it out, you're figuring it out, we're figuring out remote learning, and you've always said that, you know, we're always going to get better at it. How do you think we are doing right now, or teachers are doing with the second quarter of remote learning?
Well, first I have to say everybody continues to work incredibly hard. That's our teachers, our parents, and our students. I would also say it's uneven. You can't be 37,000 students, families, and their educators and not have some great examples and some really struggling examples, which again goes to why we're going to have to figure out a post-pandemic response for kids who struggled during the pandemic. Having said that, I have seen incredible lessons. I have seen students doing a rhetorical critique of my letter to the community about the killing of George Floyd in 9th grade at one of our schools. I've seen middle schools write letters as they're learning advocacy about how to improve remote learning. I've seen a kindergarten teacher leading a science experiment where kids were journaling, and another kindergarten classroom where a young person made a case for why we should mask and we should wash our hands and we should social distance because COVID-19 is boring, and if we want to get the boring stuff done, we have to do these things. That's a really cogent article, comment from a 5-year-old, right? So we have many, many examples across the district of kids and educators and parents working really hard. We're getting better every day, but it doesn't still fully replace what would have been happening in a quote-unquote normal world. And so we have to remember that not only are we in this pandemic and have to make the best of it, but we have to be prepared to respond when the pandemic is finally over.
So you talked about the great examples, but let's talk about the students and the families that are struggling. Just talk about how the district is here for them and giving them the support that they may need.
Well, I think you said right off the top is that we have to remember to keep supporting each other. The district has a number of hotlines that are on our website. We've mailed them to our homes for any kind of support that a family needs, whether it's social and emotional support. I'm feeling cooped up, I can't do this, we're driving each other crazy, help us. Whether it be COVID, I think I have it, or I know I have it, who do I talk to? You can talk to our school nurses. If it's IT support, our parents and teachers are really trying to check in much more regularly. Not just parent conference, but that Wednesday office hours. And we're trying to reach out for the kids who haven't engaged and find out why haven't they, and finding various reasons for that. Some that are feeling overwhelmed and so they're skipping their classes to do work. Others that had a rough start and kind of threw up their hands and said, I can't do it. And so how do we get them reconnected? Kids who are trying to work during the day, and so reminding employers that they're still students first and they can work after school and on the weekends, but not during school hours. So any number of things, but all coming back to remembering to be great parents. Don't feel like you have to be a great teacher. That's not your job, and we're not asking you to. Our teachers are working really hard to do that. Second is, asking for that help and knowing that we're here to do it. Remembering none of us have been through a pandemic, and so it's completely okay. And then the third is remembering to use those teachable moments when you're cooking, when you're shopping, when you're watching TV. All of those lived experiences that parents are the first teacher for.
And so how is attendance, how is engagement with remote learning right now?
Well, it's a little hard to measure, actually. So, we bought our students and our educators a large number of tools so that they would have a lot of digital platforms to work from, but it's really hard to see where they are at any given point. So if you've logged into Clever, which is kind of our oversight, we can measure that. But if you've logged out of that to go to Newsela, for example, for your English assignment, we can't measure that. Teacher reports are our best way to know what's going on. That's reporting at about 85% daily average, so that's a little low, but it doesn't account for those other things students are doing on their own time or in other tools that we just don't have an effective way to measure.
Understand. So we are in remote learning until the winter break as it stands right now due to the coronavirus cases and the uptick. But it's almost time for you to make the decision again for the beginning of the second semester. Can you just remind our viewers what your indicators are that you would maybe switch to hybrid or in-person learning?
Sure. We're going to continue to look at the public health data as the first set of data. Every Thursday, I monitor the state data updates on the rating system. Cuyahoga County is still red, although has been trending better. We see all over the state things are getting worse and quickly, so unfortunately I think we're going to see that here too. I also look at the Cleveland Board of Public Health, the Cleveland data specifically. I talk with the Board of Health director and also have access to Cuyahoga County's directors. So that's the first data set, is what is the health data saying. The second is, what is our safety and comfort saying? So we will be again interviewing our parents and caregivers as well as staff members. That survey will be going out the first week of December. It's November 30th through December 4th, really urging people to take that survey and tell us where they are, because it doesn't help us to open schools if 2/3 of our families say, I'm not coming back. We aren't going to provide for what the need is if people can't feel safe and comfortable. And then the third is, how are we doing in remote learning? And to our earlier conversation, we're doing better for some and worse for others. And so phasing in first, students with disabilities who maybe need more supports. Not everyone, some are really doing well, but there are some that need support. English learners, particularly if English is brand new to you and it's emerging. 12th graders who aren't yet on track for graduation, and we need to get them there. CTE students who need that lab time to get their credential. Starting with that group first. Then looking at preschool, kindergarten, first and second grade. It's harder when you're emerging in your learning space. And then ultimately middle and high school as well.
I know the numbers don't look good, but is there a possibility that hybrid could happen before winter break?
Well, I left the window open that if the numbers started to improve, we would begin phasing in. I have to say right now, I don't think that's likely, but I'm still open to it. We're going to make our next decision, though, for post-winter break on December 11th, and that gives us 2 weeks after the Thanksgiving recess. There's a lot of concern about families rightfully wanting to be together for Thanksgiving, but that could create more spread. And we'll have 2 weeks more of data that'll help determine both what we do for the balance of December, and also what we would do for the first 3 weeks of January as we finish the semester.
I understand. Have you been concerned about enrollment? Has it taken a hit?
Enrollment is a little bit lower. It's primarily low in kindergarten and preschool. There are some families who have chosen to find hybrid environments. Is it a concern? In some ways, yes. However, I think I would be irresponsible to make decisions simply to protect numbers instead of making decisions that are based on health, safety, and comfort of the majority of our families. And so if families can find better experiences to meet their needs, I've always been an advocate for choice. It has to be truer now than ever.
Do you think that they might come back once the pandemic's over, or how is the district planning to rebound after the pandemic?
Well, we're going to be doing a lot of planning for what our post-pandemic recovery strategy is, and I don't have that planned yet. We're trying to make sure we have hybrid ready and that sort of thing. But I think we need to face, as not only Cleveland, but as a state and nation, that this is going to be a long recovery. It's been now not only months, but approaching potentially a year of complete disruption across the globe. And so recovering from that doesn't just mean, okay, that's done. Where are you supposed to be as a third grader, and how do we shovel knowledge into that hole? Instead saying, well, where are you actually as a learner, and how do we pick up from where you left off and over time close that gap? It's going to be the same thing for enrollment. How do we encourage families to reconsider if they left, that maybe we have a better response plan to bring them back or to bring new families back? I think one thing we've done has been predictable and stable. And I think that is what we need to continue to do, to be able to clearly communicate what you can expect from CMSD so that you can make good choices and you have time to adjust to those choices.
I understand. So let's talk about our seniors with Say Yes to Education. That's a great tool that we have in our back pocket so that our seniors can go to college or go to secondary education, in a way for them to stay on track and stay focused for graduation. How have the seniors been with filling out the necessary forms like FAFSA to get on track to graduate and get those extra dollars or those?
Well, the good news is we got an early jump on it this year. We've started helping students fill out their FAFSAs about a month earlier than we have in the past. Our numbers are slightly higher to date than they were a year ago, and remember, a year ago we weren't yet in a pandemic. Time will tell, right? We have to make sure that our students are doing that. We know last year nationally FAFSA completion fell between 20 and 40%. Particularly in communities of color, while ours went up 4%. I think that's a Say Yes implication. We also know the class that was supposed to go to school, more of our 4-year students went, fewer of our 2-year students who would go to Tri-C or other community colleges did. So we'll have to see how we bring those students back in. And I'm concerned about whether students will come back second semester and persist when we're either in hybrid or remote, and now with the potential of a lot of universities switching to remote post-Thanksgiving. So again, I think we have to have a pandemic response. We have to not only think about how we're helping in the pandemic, but what we will be prepared to do when it's over to pick up where kids are and keep them moving. But so far I'm really pleased that we seem to be bucking some pretty important trends, and I think Say Yes is the reason.
That's right. Say Yes is definitely a game changer. And you recently spoke to some leaders just about Say Yes, and also that there's a different track, straight to the workforce. Can you just talk a little bit about, how you're trying to levy both of them at the same time?
Well, look, I'm a huge proponent of Say Yes, and I advocated to get it here, but I also am always questioning. And the Say Yes theory of action is that once you have graduated high school, you will matriculate to a trade school 2-year or 4-year college, and then enter the career market after that. And so we have about 1,000 kids a year who follow that path. We also have about 1,000 kids a year who don't actually choose to go to trade school 2-year or 4-year, but still need to find their way to what are called opportunity jobs, jobs that are going to lead to a wage-sustaining lifestyle, and not simply into what McDonald's calls America's best first job, which I think is a beautiful thing for high school students to do, not for a career. Right? And so we've been working on what is the pathway, not just trade school 2-year and 4-year, but what are all of the pathways that lead to careers post-high school. And I'm really excited about that work. We've got another public-private partnership of lots of players at the table. Issue 68 is going to help us fund our portion of it so that our students are getting access to employers and to employer-serving agencies and Jobs Ohio and all of the resources to explore what are the jobs that I can go to post-high school, maybe with a badge or a micro-credential, that open doors to promotion. I can learn to sterilize equipment for the Cleveland Clinic, which is a job you can do right out of high school, and we're going to start training here hopefully in the district, with the notion that once in the clinic system, I can promote into higher and higher positions as well, as just one example. So really excited about that work and more to come.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. I know a lot of people have pandemic fatigue. I know I have it. I mean, I know a lot of kids have it too. But what you're just talking about is the future, and people need to, and students need to look to the future to know that there's something out there, and there's something to look forward to, and that we will get through this and definitely get through this together. But what's something you want to say to the students, to the families, as we enter, another holiday where we can't be together?
Well, look, pandemic fatigue is a real thing. I've even had trouble getting the words out of my mouth in this conversation, right? We all have it. But I will tell you, I've seen so many bright spots, and I have such hope for the future. And I've said this even last, June. When this is over, and it will be, we will see the other side of this. Our kids are going to make this a renaissance, and I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet, but there are kids right now who are determining that they're going to be researchers to cure the next disease because they lived through this. There are kids right now who are thinking they're going to go into the medical profession because of a family member that either was helped and saved or maybe wasn't. And should have been. There are people who are going to go into politics, either because they like what politicians did or because they completely disagree with how politicians handled this. There are people who are going to teach because of what a teacher did, or maybe because they thought what a teacher might have done. There are going to be artists and poets and musicians and, essayists. And so there is a lot that is going to come of this when this is done. The trick is we can't think about this as then and now, which is what we're tending to do, all of us are tending to do. We have to think about then, now, and what's next. And I'm really trying to help us point to the what's next. We will get through the pandemic, and we have to keep doing it together, but we have to do it with an eye that this is not the new norm, and people are using that language, the new normal. No, it's not. This is a pandemic, and pandemics are not normal. What the new normal is when there is a vaccine, we're vaccinated, we're back together, we can hug each other, we can have Thanksgiving together. What is that world that we're going to create? And it's our kids that are going to create that world.
They are, because they're the future, right?
That's right.
Well, I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.